for us and all that we go through as veterans. It's a story that rings true. We learn to endure the heat in silence. We apply what we learn to life. The bills, the job, the family. Things we're expected to handle with ease. When life heats up around us, we just try to stay afloat. We let the water boil. Reaching out isn't easy, but you've never been interested in easy. You joined because you were not afraid of hard work. You are not a frog. If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait until the water boils. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach. Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
The Brady Farkas Show is produced and funded by WDEV and the Radio Vermont Group. We welcome listener feedback. Email your comments to wdev@radiovermont.com.
The teams you care about.
Mac Jones is good. That's not the question. The question is he good enough to win repeatedly in this loaded AFC?
The stories that matter to you.
If I'm Xander Bogaerts, I need three things in order to get over that insulting contract offer.
This is your home for New England sports.
Jason Tatum, superstar. Book it.
This is the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Brady Farkas Show on a Monday right here on WDEV AM and FM and WDEVradio.com. We do have a new intro. Bravo to everybody who put that together, and a little add-on there, the No Sleep Till Brooklyn instrumental. Fun fact, first radio show I ever hosted that kind of had my name attached to it. Like I'd filled in on shows before, but that were first show where I was ever on in the weekdays where people were actually listening to me. The intro song was No Sleep Till Brooklyn. So I have a good affinity for the No Sleep Till Brooklyn instrumental. Short show tonight. We're up until 6:10 on this Monday. Then it's Red Sox baseball. Sox looking for a series win against the Orioles. Game 5 of 5 in this rare 5-game series. And we'll talk about that. And Sox will look to move within one game of 500. A little bit on the Sox and a whole lot on the Celtics, who are headed to the NBA Finals for the first time in more than a decade. They'll meet the Golden State Warriors beginning Thursday night. C's win last night 100-96 to clinch that spot in the Finals. A very, happy day of remembrance out there. Thank you to all of our veterans. Thank you to all of our service people who continue to serve to protect our freedoms and keep us safe. You deserve the limelight every day. Especially today, we give it to you. Thank you again for protecting our freedoms and our way of life. You can get in on the Napa Morrisville, Napa Waterbury text line, 802-585-3026. That's your locally owned Napa stores in Waterbury and Morrisville. Also, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and my Twitter account as well.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And here we go.
The opening thoughts on the Brady Farkas Show are brought to you by Sticks and Stuff and by Swanton Lumber, Vermont's most complete locally owned home center. Locations in Enosburg, Derby, Middlesex, St. Albans, and at Swanton Lumber. They're online at sticksandstuff.com. I want to start today with a clip I heard earlier this afternoon from Colin Cowherd of Fox Sports Radio, because what he says brought out a lot of thoughts for me. Listen to Colin talking about the NBA Finals, or the Eastern Conference Finals, Game 7 last night that leads to the NBA Finals.
The Celtics should be happy. I think how that was a 7-game series, I have no idea. Hobbled, no second dependable scorer. I don't know what to make of it. They were down 13 with 3.5 minutes left. How was it close after getting overwhelmed in the first quarter? I think I'm more impressed right now with Miami than I am with Boston.
So, Colin, more impressed with Miami than he is with Boston. Let me tell you why that bothers me. I don't care if you were impressed by Miami. You should have been. What Miami did was impressive. They played hard. They were hobbled. They deserved your respect. What Butler did in Game 6 in Boston on Friday night was really special. But don't let your respect for Miami take away from what the Celtics did, either within the confines of that series or within the totality of the season, because the Boston Celtics were pretty damned impressive in their own right. Miami, be impressed with them all you want, but acknowledge what Boston did as well. I get it that Colin's simplifying it. Boston has more talent, so therefore it should have been a runaway. No, it's not that simple. The Boston Celtics just won 3 games on the road against the number 1 seed. The Celtics won 3 games on the road against the number 1 seed. That doesn't happen. That just does not happen. Not only did the Celtics win 3 games on the road, they never trailed in those 3 wins. They never trailed. Not 2-0, not 15-14, not 80-78. The Celtics won 3 games on South Beach and never trailed. The Celtics won Game 2 on South Beach, and they won Game 5 on South Beach, and they won Game 7 on South Beach, and they never trails. So while you're lamenting the fact that it got close and it got a little hairier than it needed to at the end yesterday, remember that. The number 1 seed, Miami Heat, never led at any point in those 3 home losses against the Celtics. That's pretty darn impressive to me. So when you're talking about how great Miami was, remember it's hard to go on the road in the playoffs and win. The Celtics did it 3 times and never trailed. And then also, Colin's impressed with teams that are banged up and battle through it. Hey, Butler's banged up. PJ Tucker was banged up. Lowry was banged up. Hero was banged up. I get it. Miami was banged up. They played through it. But you know what? I don't think the Celtics were exactly some picture of health here. Marcus Smart and Robert Williams missed games in this series. They were unable to play. Marcus Smart could barely walk, and he comes out in Game 7 and gets 24 points yesterday. That is impressive as well. And Jason Tatum, who some people don't believe is a superstar yet, he averaged 25 points in this series. And while it wasn't pretty all the time, he found a way to help close out a second straight team in a Game 7. You talk about teams needing to learn how to win and teams learning how to finish. And the Celtics were able to do that. I know Miami is the plucky underdog here, even as the number 1 seed. But understand, this Celtics team, they don't have players that have been to the finals. Miami does. Being able to finish the job to clinch a spot in the finals on the road, that does take something. It's easy to say the Celtics have more talent. And yeah, they were. Yeah, they should have won. I get it. But to give away Game 6 in the way they did, and to have the mental fortitude to come back, even as you're learning how to win and actually close something out, that's something to be impressed by. Finally, and then in this series, I'm also impressed by the contributions of the Celtics bench. We always say in the NBA, without question, you need stars, right? You need stars to win in the NBA. But you can't just be a one-man band all the time. You need other help. Derek White gave it. Grant Williams gave it. Al Horford gave it. There were other players on this roster, aside from Tatum, Brown, and Smart, that helped carry this team in this series. They don't win this series without Derek White, without Grant Williams. So you want to give Miami a lot of credit and say you were more impressed with them? Okay, but don't act like what the Celtics did was not impressive, because it most certainly was. And that's just in this series. But if you look deeper at the totality of the season, you've got to be impressed by the Celtics too, right? They get to the NBA Finals with a first-year head coach in Boston, in that market, in that fishbowl, and a first-year head coach, period. That is impressive. They get to the finals with a first-year front office executive in Brad Stevens, who we didn't know if he could do the job. But he goes out and he pulls the right buttons here to get Daniel Tice back and to go get Derek White and to offload Josh Richardson and Dennis Schroeder, guys you've forgotten about from months ago. Credit to Brad Stevens for helping build this team. Yes, he inherited a lot of it, but Brad Stevens also pulled some right strings here to get this team to this spot. That's not easy. First-year front office executives don't just, come into a pot of gold and take a team to the finals. Brad Stevens did it year one. Ime Udoka did it year one. And the Celtics got to the finals after being under 500 at the halfway point of the season. They stayed with it. They battled with it. Look, in baseball, there's 162 games. You can be the Atlanta Braves last year and knock it over 500 until mid-August. You can be the Washington Nationals and be 19-31 on June 1st and come back and win the World Series. There's time to get over things in baseball. Not infinite time, but there's time. The NBA season is half that length. You don't have the time to overcome a bad start. And the Celtics found a way to do it. I mean, they were under 500 halfway through the season. And they find a way to pick up their bootstraps, win a bunch of games in the last 2.5, 3 months of the season, and then they knock out Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Giannis, and Jimmy Butler all. I mean, that's impressive too. So when Colin says he walked away more impressed with Miami, my question is, or my statement is, look a little deeper. The Celtics series was more impressive than you give it credit for. Winning 3 games on the road, never trailing, getting contributions from guys that aren't your stars, playing through injury on your end. Tatum's shoulder banged up. Smart can barely walk. Williams largely ineffective yesterday, but he was able to give you some effort in this series. And you found a way to close. A young team without finals experience found a way to close Giannis and the number 1 seed on the road. That's impressive. That's damn impressive. Be impressed with Miami all you want, but be impressed with the Celtics as well. It's the Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. Will in Plattsburgh, can the Celtics beat the Warriors? Of course they can. That's a very, that's a simple answer. Yes, they can. I would say I would choose the Warriors in 6 right now. I would choose the Warriors in 6. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. I got time here to amend my statement. We're going to talk to guys over the course of the week. We're going to do more research, but my gut tells me that a team with championship pedigree, with a championship-winning head coach, with a championship-winning nucleus, that tells me that Golden State's the favorite. Curry, Draymond, and Clay, they've all been there. I think something key for the Warriors right off the bat is going to be what do Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins do? Because if Jordan Poole can go for 30 at any point, the Celtics are in trouble. If Jordan Poole goes for 6, then the Celtics are doing something right. Because the Warriors have a lot of options. If those other guys, if their other guys can't play for the moment, aren't ready for the moment, then the Celtics have a better chance. Absolutely. The Celtics can win. My gut tells me at this moment that they will not. But again, we have time to amend our statement. So that's Will in Plattsburgh. All right, let's step aside briefly. When we come back, 2 pieces of audio that came out from the Celtics after the game. 2 pieces of audio really resonated with me. I'll tell you who said it and what they said. That's next on the Brady Farkas Show on DEV.
Do you enjoy grocery shopping? Are you 55 or older and living at or below the federal poverty level? Can you commit to volunteering 10 to 12 hours a week? Senior Companion volunteers form meaningful relationships with 5 or 6 people who want companionship and support. Deep friendships often result from the adventures that are embarked upon once you are matched with a senior. Our senior companions tell us that they look forward to their visits as much, if not more, than the folks they are matched with. They love what they do, Helping people feels good. They say they are not just friends, but feel like family. For more information about becoming a senior companion volunteer, please call the helpline at 1-800-642-5119.
WDEV is positively thrilled to take part in this year's Central Vermont Humane Society's Walk for the Animals. Join other humans and their furry friends Saturday, June 11th at 9:30 on the State House lawn. From there, we'll parade through Montpelier. Prizes will be awarded for Best Doggy Costume and Best Doggy Trick. Media support for the Walk for the Animals is brought to you in part by Curtis Lumber. There's a Curtis Lumber near you. Find out where at curtislumber.com. Ladder One Grill. Steaks, burgers, brick oven pizzas, calzones, pasta, seafood, and more in downtown Barrie. And VDM Law. Vermont attorneys serving the community since 1977. The Central Vermont Humane Society's Walk for the Animals, Saturday, June 11th at 9:30 on the State House lawn. See you there.
Make your opinion heard by texting onto the Brady Farkas Show at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in. Brady Farkas Show here on WDEV, AM and FM. I'll get to those two pieces of audio that moved me in 1 second. I do want to answer one text on the Napa Morrisville, Napa Waterbury text line. Brady, Danny Ainge deserves a lot of credit for drafting Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Yes, 100%. I think there's this faction of people that don't want to give Danny Ainge or Brad Stevens any credit. I think they want to look at it like, see, once Ainge and Stevens were gone, they could win. I don't look at it that way. There's a foundation with the Celtics that has been built. There's a culture with the Celtics that has been built. Ime Udoka has played a huge role in getting the Celtics over the top. 100%. I'm not taking away from him. But this idea that it's 100% him and none of Ainge or Stevens, that's not true either. It takes guts to do what Danny Ainge did over the last few years, right? Think about how many times you were listening to sports radio and there was the Celtics should trade their picks. The Celtics should trade their picks. The Celtics should trade Tatum and Brown. Okay, the Celtics should trade one of two of them. I did this segment several times. Should the Celtics trade for Paul George? Should the Celtics trade for Kawhi Leonard? Should the Celtics trade for Anthony Davis? Should the Celtics trade for James Harden? Should the Celtics trade for Ben Simmons? I did that. I've done that segment. I've done each of those segments. And kudos to Danny Ainge for not doing any of it. He held on to Tatum and Brown. He held on to the picks themselves before they became Tatum and Brown. Danny Ainge traded the number one pick in the draft the year Tatum got drafted, traded it to his conference rival Philly. They took Markelle Fultz, and he got Tatum at 3. Now, I don't know if that's smart forecasting or just dumb luck, but either way, it worked out. Danny Ainge deserves a lot of credit. This is not the Celtics won just because those guys are gone. The Celtics won in part because of what those guys built. And I hope everybody acknowledges that. All right, two pieces of audio that came out post-game really did move me last night. The first one came from Marcus Smart.
Everything we've been through. I mean, individually, together, in our, basketball lives, outside of our basketball lives, we've been through a lot together. We bring it all, we don't hold anything back from each other. And I think that's the beauty of it. I think that growth is inevitable when you do things like that. When you bleed and you sweat and you cry together, it's only right that you build together to get to something great.
That was powerful to me. You think about what these guys, both individually and as a group, have gone through, and it's an awful lot. Now, every team has their story. This isn't unique to the Celtics only. But look at what these guys, this core group of players, right? Tatum, Brown, Smart, and to a large degree Al Horford, because he was here for a lot of it too. You look at what these guys have been through in no particular order. These guys ran through 3 different, quote, stars that they had to adjust and play with, right? IT, Kyrie, and Kemba. You throw in Gordon Hayward, and that's another. There's a lot of ingredients there in the soup that these guys had to try to make work. Tatum and Brown and Smart have been to the Eastern Conference Finals 3 times as young players and never got over the hump. They take a several-year absence from the Eastern Conference Finals. And here, now they are overcoming the adversity. This is their 4th chance. We always talk about the golfer that can't win a major or the tennis player that can't close out a major. These guys have been to the Eastern Conference Finals 4 times, and finally they get to it. They finally get to the NBA Finals this time. These guys have all dealt with injuries for the most part. Marcus Smart out for multiple weeks last year with a calf injury. Jaylen Brown missed last year's playoffs with a torn ligament in his wrist. Tatum last year missed a lot of time with a pretty tough bout of COVID. The core saw Al Horford go away. Brad Stevens step aside, or at least get repositioned in the organization. This team dealt with COVID last year. The Celtics in 2020 were the 3rd seed in the NBA playoffs, and they had to play that series or play that Eastern Conference Finals in the bubble against Miami, and the Celtics lost home court advantage by having to play in the bubble. Then you look at the fact, look, this team, this core, racial reckoning, George Floyd, Jacob Blake, it's been a long journey. Jason Tatum had a kid. Marcus Smart lost his mom. There has been tragedy and there has been triumph for this team. Every team has their stories, but this group, this core that's been together for a while, it really has been through a lot, and I'm happy to see them come out the other side. The second piece of audio that spoke to me last night was Jason Tatum.
Yeah, I think all of those things have helped, from saying that we need to split the group up or get rid of, somebody, or me and JB can't play together. That fueled us to figure it out and, not run from it.
I love that too. I love that Tatum is calling out the people that doubted that he and Jaylen Brown could play together, because I've done that segment 15 times too over the last couple of years. I never bought in to the notion that Tatum and Brown couldn't play together. I never bought into the notion that one of them had to go. It never made any sense to me, and I'm glad that Jason Tatum is pointing out, hey, you said we couldn't do this, and here we are doing this. Now we are at the top of the mountain. We are at the NBA Finals. You didn't think that we could do this. In fact, you tried to get the organization to get rid of one of us, but we didn't, and here we are. It never made sense, the idea that Tatum and Brown couldn't play together. I'm sorry, it just never did. Usually, when you talk about, can guys play together, it's because one guy is trying to rise up over the other, right? One guy has to be the definitive guy on a team. Tatum and Brown both had money. They both got max contracts. They're both young. Guys want a good running mate. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they had that good running mate. Do they really want to go and leave that to go somewhere else? Like, they already had the money in Boston. They were already established there. I never bought into the fact that they couldn't make it work, that they weren't able to make it work. So I'm glad that Tatum recognized it, and along that line, he continued on.
That, we are obviously going to be here for a while, and that we trust in each other, and that we had to be better. So, yeah, I think instead of separating, we became closer.
We became closer. And I love to watch relationships get formed. I love to watch bonds form. I love to watch chemistry. I love to study the body language that people have. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, if it was ever tough at the beginning, and maybe it was, right? Young players looking to assert themselves. But once they each got the money, they became on equal footing. And then I think they were able to work together. And Brown knows that he needs Tatum, and Tatum knows that he needs Brown. They both need each other, and I'm happy that they did this together. I'm happy they did this together. All right, we'll have much more on the Celtics, much more on the Warriors and the Celtics matchup, which begins Thursday night. We'll talk about this all week. Napa Morrisville, Napa Waterbury text line.
We are obviously going to be here for a while.
Did not mean to play that. We just played that. I don't know what happened there. But Joe on the Napa Morrisville, Napa Waterbury text line, he said that Celtics looked good last night. The best comeback, or the Heat came back, but the defense that's been great all year held it down. He thinks they can beat the Warriors in 7, so he's got the Celtics winning in 7. He says the games do need to start earlier than 9 o'clock. That's not going to happen, at least while it's out west. I mean, the West Coast games, 6 o'clock Pacific time, that's not even ideal, right? Like, you get out of work at 5, you go to the game, like 7 o'clock at the earliest, 7:30 is really the ideal time. 8 o'clock is the best time for the league, prime time-wise, but they're going to make the West Coast game start at 6. That's earlier than they want to start. 9 o'clock puts them on the primetime window on the East and gets people a chance to get to the game on the West. The ones that are in Golden State, they're not going to start before 9. I haven't looked at the full schedule for when the Boston games will start. They might be able to start those at 8 or 8:30. I imagine they'll still start them at 9 just because they can, but so they can get the West Coast viewership. But you're not going to see games start. They're not going to start at a time that's convenient for us. That's for sure. It's all going to be about maximizing East and West Coast viewership. Red Sox baseball comes up about 15 minutes from now, and on the other side of the CBS News update, we'll have the lineup for you as we do before every Red Sox game. But I do have to say this before we get into the lineup in today's game. The Red Sox are complaining about their schedule, and they need to just stop. So Nick Pivetta and Alex Cora yesterday both took the MLB schedule makers to task and basically said they were tired. Let's rewind and kind of set the stage here. The Celtics, the Red Sox swept Seattle in that 4-game series that ended last weekend, right? The Sox had an off day last Monday. They flew to Chicago on that off day. They played 3 games, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They then got back in to Boston, early in the morning. It was like 5:30 in the morning. Then they had to play Baltimore for 5 games in 4 days, and the Sox won't have an off day until Thursday. So to their credit, they're playing 10 games in 9 days. I get it, but let's please not complain about this. The Red Sox will have an off day last Monday and this Thursday. They will have an off day in each of these 2 weeks. Sometimes teams don't get that. Teams will play 17 games in 17 days. The Red Sox will have had 2 off days in the span of those 2 weeks. That's pretty fortunate. And I hope they realize, look, they swept Seattle, right, those 4 games. Seattle is 3,000 miles away from Boston. After the Mariners got beat by the Red Sox in those 4 games, they had to fly 3,000 miles to Seattle and play that night against Oakland. So the Mariners had a 10-day road trip, right? Mets, Toronto, Boston. And I don't believe they had an off day in any of them. May have had one. Someone can correct me on that. But nonetheless, they played 10 games on the East Coast, 3,000 miles away from home. Then they had to fly 3,000 miles back home and play that night. That's a tough break in the schedule. What the Red Sox are doing, I'm sorry. You're a baseball team. You're supposed to be able to play every day. Yes, it's some day games after night games. Yes, there's a doubleheader. I'm not saying it's easy, but you've had 2. You will have had 2 off days in these 2 weeks. 7 of your 10 games will have been at home. The only trip you had to take was to Chicago. This whining isn't really resonating with me. And the reason you had the 5 games set with Baltimore is because of all the labor issues from the offseason. You didn't want to give in on the labor issues, right? If you had given in, the season would have started on time. I support your desire to not give in. I think they did the right thing, and I think they ultimately got a good deal. But part of the price to pay of getting that good deal was angst with the schedule. You knew that in order to get a better deal and to hold out in this whole thing, hold out at the bargaining table, you were going to get pinched a little bit with the schedule. You knew that, right? Shortened spring training, that impacted you. Double headers, that impacts you. and a 5-game series that impacts you. Part of the price to pay for that better deal was having a schedule that is not always convenient. Okay, that's part of the deal. So Pavetta and Cora, this one doesn't hold water to me. I'm sorry. 10 games in 9 days, fine. But 7 of those 10 games are at home. Your only trip was to Chicago. 2 off days in 2 weeks. I'm not buying this. Red Sox baseball now 10 minutes from now. CBS National News update. Then we get you the Red Sox lineups. They go for a series win tonight against the Orioles. That comes up next right here on WDEV AM and FM, streaming at WDEVradio.com.
This is WDEV, Vermont's news station, owned and operated by the Radio Vermont Group. From the top of Sugar Bush, 96.1 FM, WDEV Warren and Waitsfield, 96.5 W243 Barrie, 98.3 W252 CU Montpelier, along with our founding station, AM 550 WDEV Waterbury Montpelier, streaming at WDEVradio.com. 90 years of serving Vermont, the friendly pioneer, WDEV.
This is CBS News on the Hour, your home for original reporting.
I'm Monica Ricks in New York. The first funerals for 19 children and 2 teachers killed in a school shooting are set to start tomorrow in Uvalde, Texas. CBS's Lilia Luciano is there.
As the victims are laid to rest, some members of the community are questioning why more wasn't done to save them.
One little girl was shot through the kidney with 1 bullet wound. She might have lived had she not waited and bled out.
Texas State Senator Roland Gutierrez told CBS News the young girl's family has a right to know what happened to her.
They said they don't want their daughter's death to be in vain.
About an hour ago in Houston, the NRA board reelected its leader, Wayne LaPierre. Many Americans are paying tribute to those who've died in combat this Memorial Day, including in Illinois, where people gathered for parades in Mount Prospect. In Virginia, President Biden laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier.
Memorial Day is always a day where pain and pride are mixed together.
And NATO officials honored the fallen and thanked those still serving at the USS Intrepid in New York City. Speakers also mentioned Russia's war in Ukraine.
The war in Ukraine is proof that freedom cannot be taken for granted and highlights the importance of cooperation, partnership, and determination so that together we can preserve our security and shared values.
High gas prices didn't stop millions of people from hitting the road this Memorial Day weekend, but airlines have scrapped 400 flights today, mostly over bad weather. About 2,500 have been delayed. Agatha has finally made landfall in southern New Mexico as a Category 2 hurricane. CBS News meteorologist David Parkinson.
We could be seeing 10 to 16 inches of rain. So mudslides and flooding going to be the main concern as the storm rapidly weakens as it moves to the interior portion of Mexico.
Right now, the storm's packing 105-mile-an-hour winds. CBS's Vicki Barker reports monkeypox keeps spreading.
The WHO says there have now been more than 250 confirmed cases of monkeypox in 23 countries with no previous history of the disease. But the agency's top monkeypox expert says she remains confident we are not looking at the next global pandemic here.
The U.S. Air Force unveiled a new recruiting ad in theaters this weekend.
The entire sky belongs to us.
The minute-long promo runs right before Top Gun Maverick. The Air Force credited the original Top Gun in 1986 as its most successful recruiting tool. Flight training was up 500% that year. This is CBS News.
There's always something new under the sun. CBS Mornings, weekdays on CBS.
When we need support, Vermonters know we can count on community. And when Vermont's community service providers need support, they count on the Vermont Community Loan Fund. For 35 years, VCLF has specialized in lending to community facilities and nonprofit service providers, including rural health centers, assisted living facilities, early care and learning programs, arts and cultural organizations, and even a historic general store or two. VCLF's flexible financing helps them do what they do best, guaranteeing access to essential quality of life services for all Vermonters. Vermont nonprofits and community facilities can count on the Vermont Community Loan Fund, so you can count on them. Isn't that what community is all about? Find out what the nonprofit lending specialists at the Vermont Community Loan Fund can do for your community at investinvermont.org. That's investinvermont.org.
How well does your garden grow? Tune in Saturdays at 12:30 for In the Garden with Peter Burke. Peter and co-host Joel Nashman give you 1 full hour of the latest news, helpful tips, and your calls to talk about what's happening in your garden. It's brought to you in part by Menard's family-owned True Value Store, Brooklyn Street, Morrisville. In the Garden with Peter Burke, live Saturdays at 12:30. Hear the podcast anytime at WDEVradio.com.
This is David Goodman. Join me every Wednesday at 1 o'clock for the Vermont Conversation, brought to you by VTDigger.org, Vermont's nonprofit news source. I'll talk with national and local change makers from the worlds of politics, social and racial justice, science, education, and the environment who are having an impact on our daily lives. You can also hear the Vermont Conversation at VTDigger.org or sign up for our podcasts. Join me and take part in the Vermont Conversation Wednesdays at 1 here on WDEV.
Want Brady to hear your opinion on the sports stories of the day? Text in at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Red Sox baseball 5 minutes from now. We'll give you the lineups here in about 3 minutes on WDEV AM and FM and WDEVradio.com. Game 5 of 5 for the Red Sox against the Orioles here. To me, this is a must-win game. It's not must-win in the sense that it makes or breaks your season, but you absolutely have to win this series if you're the Red Sox. On Friday, we talked about a 10-game stretch where you had Baltimore, the Reds, and the A's. Within that stretch, you need to be going 8-2 or 7-3 type stuff. You cannot lose 3 of the first 5. That is the gift portion of your schedule. If you're looking for the Red Sox to have any chance in the division, and if you're looking for the Red Sox to get primo position in the wild card, then this 10-game stretch, this was supposed to be the thing that catapulted you back to relevance. You cannot lose 3 of 5 to the Orioles at home. Again, Orioles, Reds, A's. We said it. It needed to be 8-2 or 7-3. Losing 3 of 5 here would be a massive failure. A massive failure. A completely wasted opportunity. I think the Red Sox will win tonight. The offense is scorching. Hopefully the offense scorches enough tonight so that the bullpen doesn't become a part of it. I mean, what happened on Friday was absolutely ludicrous with the Red Sox blowing an 8-2 lead in the 7th inning. So I think the Red Sox win today. I think they'll come out alert, attentive, and aggressive. But they're going to need to do those things because if they fall today, that is a massive missed opportunity. By the way, I also don't approve of the Red Sox playing a night game tonight. I do not approve of this. This feels wrong for so many reasons to me. Maybe it's because the schedule is tough and they wanted a little extra time because of the doubleheader on Saturday, but damn, this should be a day game. The Red Sox should be playing day baseball today. Memorial Day. It's an American holiday. We should be celebrating with America's pastime. Day baseball should be played at Fenway. Day baseball should be played everywhere, and every team should be playing. Not every team is even playing today. Day baseball should have been played today. It's getaway day for Baltimore. Speaking of tough schedules, they got to go play Seattle tomorrow, so a day game would have done them good as well. So, hey, I digress, but I just wish that this was a day game. All right, let's get to the lineups. The Orioles are 20-29 in the town today. The Red Sox are 2 games under at 23-25, looking to try to get to the 500 mark by game 50. Tyler Wells is on the mound for Baltimore, 1-4 with a 4.3 ERA. Rich Hill, 1-2 with a 3.86 for your Sox. Austin Hayes leads off in right for Baltimore with 5 home runs. Trey Mancini's the DH. He's hitting .298. Ryan Mountcastle's at first. Anthony Santander, he's got 8 home runs to lead this O's squad. He's in left. Ramon Urias, he is the third baseman and bats 5th. Adley Rutschman, the top prospect in baseball, the catcher, bats 6th. Jorge Mateo, the former Yankees prospect, is the shortstop, batting 7th. Ryan McKenna's in center, and Chris Owings, he of very former Red Sox fame, is at second base, batting 9th. Kike Hernandez has hit, I believe, in 16 of 17 games. He's now over 200. He leads off in center. Rafael Devers, he just keeps hitting. He's at third. JD Martinez, the DH. Xander Bogaerts at short. Alex Verdugo in left. Trevor Story, 9 home runs, 37 ribbies, and 6 steals. Franchi Cordero's gotten hot, hitting .282. He's at first. Christian Vasquez is the catcher. And Jackie Bradley Jr. hitting .227. He is the right fielder, and he bats 9th. Red Sox go for the series win today. Again, be a massive failure if they weren't able to. This is one you got to have. The Orioles at home, a chance to win the series. Do not lose this series and then have to, scratch and claw to get every other game in this 10-game stretch you're supposed to. 8-2, 7-3 should be reality. You need to get a win tonight. Happy Memorial Day, everybody. See you tomorrow.
This is